Democrat voters are out for blood, and it looks like radicals are happy to deliver. 2 separate ICE facilities ambushed, just 3 days apart. We just got the mugshots from one of the attacks. 10 suspects charged with attempted murder. The feds say they showed up in black military-style gear and were armed to the teeth. The plan? Set off fireworks to lure agents out of the building so they could slaughter them. One police officer took a bullet to the neck, but survived. And sadly, this is exactly the kind of bloodlust Democrat voters are demanding. House Democrat lawmakers telling Axios how their voters want to see someone get shot while resisting Trump. Quote, our own base is telling us that we're not doing good enough and that there needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public. Some progressives are trying to satisfy the mob. This lawmaker thinks it's inspiring to block ICE.
Some of the most inspiring things have been when people encircle courtrooms and refuse to allow ICE agents in. There are all kinds of nonviolent resistance tactics that we have to use. And I've started something called Resistance Lab. It's a training on really the documented, most effective ways to counter Democratic backsliding, nonviolent resistance tactics to build that movement.
But Tom Homan warns it's only a matter of time before an ICE agent pays with their life.
These nuts that want to take it beyond protesting to criminal activity, they're getting rhetoric from the members of Congress, the senators who compare ICE to the Nazis, and Congressman J. Paul compared it to terrorist organizations. So these people, these fringe groups, feel emboldened. If a member of Congress can attack ICE, why can't we?
So, Dana, as a Democrat, how would you handle when a good chunk of your base wants blood?
I think I would forcefully push back, and I would advocate for strong enforcement measures like prosecution for attempted murder. If you look at those people, most of them are young.
Yeah.
And their lives are pretty much ruined. Right? You got a mugshot. It's going to be very, very hard for them to recover from this. I'm sure their parents are not proud in any way. And you think about how they must have gotten lured in. I was just talking to Greg because I was trying to remember. Years ago, Rosie O'Donnell encouraged Reality Winter to break the law, right? And encouraged, like when she leaked all those documents, they developed this bond of support. Like, well, what happened to Reality Winter? Right? Who had to pay the legal bills? When you're in a position of responsibility and you're advising younger people who might be ignorant of the situation, or maybe they have no morals or no character, then that's on you. And if you don't want to be tagged with them, then that's, again, on you. I said something this morning, and I like to repeat, because when I was thinking about this with these people, what they want is political suicide by cop. Mm-hmm. They want to be shot so that they can get attention. Well, President Trump was actually shot, and it wasn't for a political stunt. And we're coming up on that anniversary, and I think that the left has a real problem with political violence, and these folks are going to hopefully be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law because they didn't commit this crime in Philly or New York or Los Angeles where it might get blown over. They're going to be prosecuted in Texas, and that will be different.
Not a beauty contest, Greg, when you look at these mugshots.
How dare you objectify these beautiful men? Because I think there are a few of those are men in there, but they identify as female. Why is there always a high percentage of trans in either Antifa or any of these violent activities when you look into it? Somebody always is trans, and it's because they're not women. Women do not participate in these highly violent, testosterone-laden activities. They're just thugs, male thugs, and you grow out your hair, you're still a thug. You know what's interesting about this is I grew up watching a lot of movies, and there was always this stereotype that it's this right-wing white guy with a shotgun and a trucker hat. That's what we're supposed to, the stereotype of the right is well-armed, rabidly prone to violence. But in reality, it's always the left who projects this stereotype onto us. They are the right may have guns, they have definitely more guns, and they may know how to use them. But they don't see it as an acceptable means to further your political aims. So why does the left do that? Because if you see the world through the prism of oppressed versus oppressor, There are no limits when fighting the oppressor. You can do anything. Remember, when you're fighting Hitler, i.e. Trump, everything was on the table. So the left isn't good at violence. They just love violence because to them, it's just another tool in their little toolkit to win. Remember, January 6th, amazingly, I know this is crazy, the only unarmed insurrection ever. The only gun used was on a female unarmed protester by a liberal cop.
And they called that cop a hero.
Yeah, exactly. Where are all the Dems right now who call January 6th worse than 9/11? You're having insurrections now every day. People are actually going out of their way with weapons to hurt people. Imagine you're an enemy of America. You must be thrilled with your 10-year plan. You've already got the border demonized. You instigated a mass invasion, and now you're getting citizens to attack their own government. The only difference is it's not an external enemy. The enemy is within, and they use the principles of the very country to destroy it. I am the victim. I am the oppressed. Therefore, I am justified to attack this country. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Harold.
Emily, the sophistication here, it's a little different than what we usually see from Antifa. Usually it's fireworks or they're throwing rocks, but you know, they've planned this. They've obviously trained. This was premeditated. There is weaponry here that you usually don't associate with Antifa. Is this like more of a domestic terror situation?
It looks like that because, look, there's 10 people on that screen. Among them, they had 12 sets of body armor. They had like shortwave, two-way radios. I mean, you're absolutely right that there was a massive amount of resources and organization behind them. And I'm sure there's like 20 genders among them too. But it's not just someone who feels so deeply and passionate about something. They just have to go down, you know, to the town square and make a sign and have their voice be heard. That is not this. This is a deliberate fomentation of violence. And every time I see those mugshots, I just think to myself, what a luxury it is to be them. And, you know, Dana, you mentioned their lives are ruined after this. I argue their lives were ruined before from whatever Kool-Aid they drank on X or whatever ridiculous Facebook site they're on, or whoever told them that they should be a different gender and have a different color hair, because clearly they've never conformed to any type of rational thinking whatsoever. And, you know, one of the lawmakers, as they were sort of digging into this call for violence, he compared the voters to the Roman Colosseum. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what this is. This is 100% gladiator, where you have the people in charge that are egging them on. You have lawmakers like Hakeem Jeffries and Jasmine Crockett and Maxine Waters who think that words don't carry weight, who think that it is okay for an elected official to call for violence against elected officials and law enforcement, and that they're not going to have accountability. And then you have all of the rabid fans who are watching a tiger eat a man or a lion get butchered and ripped apart and are just shouting with glee because they don't know pain. All of these people saying, it's time for us to get shot, do not know pain. All these people say, let's get arrested. You do not know what it is like to be incarcerated. All of these Upper East Side blue-haired individuals know nothing about the real world that law enforcement agents are protecting and serving. And it reminds me of, remember that white guy that was blocking the African-American woman from going to work? And it turns out that he was one of the ones that sued NYPD and got a real fat payout because they laid a hand on him during the Black Lives Matter protests, right? We saw those ones in Burning Man, tying themselves to the road. And when the law enforcement came and dragged them off, they were screaming and crying, he touched me, he grabbed me. Like the instant that they are met with accountability, they absolutely fail and wilt. But it is incumbent on those elected officials to tone down the rhetoric, because those egging on, they are aiding and abetting, and they will have consequences.
Harold, it's good to have you back around the table. Do you think that the media and Democrat leaders in the House and the Senate bear any responsibility for some of these people?
People in public, but thanks for being glad to have me back. I'm glad to be back.
Welcome, Harold.
There's too much of this talk in politics, and anyone that acts on this talk or acts because they heard someone else talk, and you harm an elected official, you harm a law enforcement official, I'm a believer that the penalties should be much harsher. I did push back a little bit on everybody around the table about this being a Democrat thing. We unfortunately had to deal with what we dealt with in Minnesota, the tragedies there last week, and I didn't inquire about the politics, but I learned that the person who might have done it might have had different politics than the people that that he went after. All that being said, it is unfortunate that hate and violence in our country is bipartisan. It's also unfortunate and true. We have too much of it. And if it's Democrats doing it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they should be condemned. If it's Republicans doing it only on Friday, they should be condemned. I think every politician has to take a step back and realize that even when you mean it, and even when you say it and mean it only in jest, or you mean it only a third or a quarter, or only to get a reaction from the crowd, some people don't take it that way. Some people take it far more harshly and seriously. Now to ICE, I agree with Tom Homan there. Anybody, any elected official or law enforcement official looking to block or impede ICE from doing their job should be held accountable. I'll say to Mr. Homan, I also hope that the first thing he said when he got this job is that he was going to hold the worst, go after the worst first. It's important to note, of the deportations that we've had so far, only 6% of them have been hardened criminals. You even have...
Are you sure about that,
That's a
Harold?
woefully inadequate percentage, respectfully.
Okay, well, let's look at the facts, and we can woefully talk about what the facts are. But only 6% of only 6% of deportations have been hardened criminals. We can fact check it in the
We will.
break.
We will.
What
I guarantee
you have
you
to
will
figure out
fact
what the
check that.
definition is. If it's 6% of killers, that's amazing. Even that's like still 6%.
No, hear me out. But of the people they have deported, only 6%. No, I agree with you. Any one of them. If we only got one in their 1,000, I don't disagree with that. My point is, this debate is going on in the administration. President Trump has had members of his cabinet say that maybe we shouldn't be deporting agriculture workers and others so quickly. They came back and said we're going to continue to do that. The challenge we have right now, as it relates to ICE, is the hierarchy of deportations. We need an immigration bill that gives them not only the resources from the Big Beautiful Bill, but give them new rules and protocols that are tougher on people coming to the country, and ensuring that when you get here, if there indeed is a path to citizenship, we allow people to do that. But let me be clear. Anyone that attacks an ICE agent needs to be held to the full account of the law.
Thank you, Harold. It would be easier to get the hardened criminals out if you guys would cooperate in your cities.
Over 76% though had convictions.
Being back around the table, Harold.
Okay.
Not hardened criminals, though.
Okay, we're going to fact check you in the brick. I can't wait. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.